Go to work. The alarm clock rang at exactly 6:30 on a cool Monday morning. Its sharp sound filled the quiet apartment and echoed through the small bedroom. Patricia slowly opened her eyes and stared at the ceiling for a few long seconds. She wished she could stay in bed just a little longer. She hadn't slept well the night before, and every part of her body still felt tired. But another busy workday was already waiting for her. She reached toward the small table beside her bed and pressed the alarm clock. Click. The apartment became quiet once again. Soft rays of sunlight slowly slipped through the curtains, painting warm golden lines across the room. Outside, the neighborhood was beginning to wake up. A bus stopped nearby. A dog barked somewhere in the distance, and faint voices drifted through the morning air as people started another ordinary day. Patricia slowly sat up and rubbed her tired eyes. She took one deep breath before finally getting out of bed. Every weekday followed almost exactly the same routine. She would get dressed, prepare a quick breakfast, drink a cup of coffee, and leave for work. Usually, everything happened right on schedule. But somehow, this morning felt different. Something wasn't right. She walked quietly into the kitchen. The cool floor touched her bare feet as she glanced toward the clock hanging above the refrigerator. Her eyes widened. Her heart skipped a beat. Oh no, she had less time than she thought. For a moment, her mind raced. What still needed to be done? Breakfast had taken longer than usual. She had checked a few messages on her phone just for a minute, or at least that's what she had believed. Without noticing, time had quietly slipped away. It is time to go to work. She looked at the clock again. Her office was across town. Morning traffic could be terrible. If she missed her usual bus or lost even a few extra minutes, she might arrive much later than expected. The thought alone made her stomach tighten. Patricia worked for a company where arriving on time was very important. Her manager believed that punctuality showed responsibility and respect for everyone. Only last month, several employees had received official warnings after arriving late too many times. Patricia never wanted to become one of them. She loved her job. She enjoyed working with her coworkers. She liked helping customers. She worked hard every single day. Losing this job would change everything. She needed her salary to pay her rent, buy groceries, and save a little money each month. She looked toward the window and quietly sighed. I really don't want to be late today. She knew exactly what could happen. If she arrived late again, she could lose her job. A wave of worry washed over her. But instead of panicking, she made a decision. She would simply move faster. There wasn't a single second to waste. On the kitchen counter sat her favorite blue coffee mug. There was still a little coffee inside. Its rich aroma filled the room, bringing back the peaceful feeling she usually enjoyed every morning. Unfortunately, today was anything but peaceful. She wrapped both hands around the warm mug and smiled just for a moment. At least I can finish this before I leave. She lifted the mug. She finished her coffee. Slowly, she drank the very last drop. The warm, slightly bitter taste gave her one final burst of energy. For only a brief moment, everything seemed calm again. There. Now I can go. The mug was empty. For a brief second, Patricia stood perfectly still in the middle of the kitchen. The apartment was silent, except for the steady ticking of the clock on the wall. Every tick seemed louder than the one before, reminding her that another second had disappeared. She looked at the clock again. I really have to leave now, she said to herself. She took a deep breath and tried not to panic. Becoming nervous would only slow her down. She reminded herself to stay calm, think clearly, and finish the last few things she needed before leaving. The first thing she needed was her keys. Without them, she would not be able to lock her apartment, and she certainly could not drive to work. Losing a few minutes searching for them would be a disaster. For one frightening moment, Patricia could not remember where she had left them the night before. She looked at the kitchen counter. Nothing. She glanced toward the living room. Nothing there either. Her heart began to beat faster. Please don't tell me I've lost them, she whispered. Then she stopped herself. No, think. Where did you put them yesterday? She closed her eyes for a second and pictured herself arriving home after work the previous evening. She remembered taking off her coat, placing her shopping bag on the counter, and putting something on the kitchen table. Her eyes opened immediately. The table! She quickly turned around. There they were. Her keys were lying exactly where she had left them, on the kitchen table. Patricia smiled with relief. Thank goodness, she said quietly. She walked over to the table and reached for them. She picked up her keys. The familiar sound of the small metal keys jingling together immediately made her feel better. They were attached to a simple silver key ring with a tiny blue plastic star hanging from it. The little decoration had been a gift from her younger sister several years earlier. Every time Patricia looked at it, she smiled. She slipped the keys into the palm of her hand and counted them without even thinking. 1 house key, 1 mailbox key, 1 office key, 1 car key. Everything was there. Perfect, she thought. She closed her fingers tightly around them so she would not accidentally put them somewhere else. Before leaving, Patricia looked around the kitchen one more time. The coffee cup was resting upside down in the sink after being rinsed. The faucet was turned off. The lights were off. Nothing had been forgotten. Her apartment looked neat and organized, just the way she liked it. She always believed that starting the day in an organized home helped her think more clearly at work. Even when she was busy, she tried to leave everything in order. Satisfied, she turned toward the front door. Then she suddenly remembered something. My coat, she almost laughed at herself. The weather report had warned that the morning would be much cooler than the afternoon. It was spring, and temperatures changed quickly throughout the day. Walking outside without a coat would make the cold wind feel much stronger. Patricia glanced toward the chair beside the front door. Her gray coat was exactly where she had left it. The chair stood next to the entrance, making it easy to grab the coat before leaving each morning. Patricia always placed it there the night before because she liked being prepared. She walked over to the table. The gray coat looked warm and comfortable. It was simple, with large pockets and dark buttons down the front. It was not expensive, but it had been with her for several years and was one of her favorite coats. She gently lifted it from the chair. She grabbed her gray coat. As she held it in her hands, she noticed how soft the fabric felt. The familiar smell of clean laundry made her smile. She had washed it only a few days earlier. This should keep me warm, she thought. She slipped one arm into the sleeve, then the other. She pulled the coat comfortably over her shoulders and straightened the collar in front of the hallway mirror. For a moment, she examined her reflection. Her hair looked a little untidy after rushing through breakfast, so she quickly brushed it back with her fingers. She adjusted the collar again and buttoned the middle buttons of the coat. There, she said with satisfaction. Much better. She placed her keys safely inside one of the coat pockets for a moment, then immediately took them out again. No, she laughed quietly. I'd better keep them in my hand. She had learned from experience that searching through deep coat pockets while standing outside the apartment could waste valuable time. Holding the keys firmly once more, Patricia looked around the apartment one last time. The kitchen was clean. The living room was quiet. Everything seemed ready. She smiled. I think I have everything now. The only thing left to do is step outside, lock the door, and begin the journey to work. She reached for the doorknob, knowing that every minute still mattered. Patricia wrapped her fingers around the cool metal doorknob and paused for just one more moment. She listened carefully. to the quiet apartment behind her. Everything was peaceful. The breakfast dishes had been taken care of. The lights were off. Nothing seemed out of place. A small smile appeared on her face. I think everything is ready. She gave the apartment one final look. It wasn't large, but it was warm, comfortable, and truly felt like home. A cozy sofa stood beside the window. A bookshelf overflowed with novels and travel guides. A healthy green plant rested quietly on the windowsill, catching the soft morning sunlight. The kitchen was spotless, exactly the way she liked it. Patricia had always believed that leaving home clean and organized made returning home after a long day feel even better. She gave herself a quiet nod. Okay, time to go. Slowly, she opened the front door. Immediately, a stream of cool morning air flowed into the apartment. It carried the fresh scent of trees, wet grass, and warm bread from the neighborhood bakery, already busy preparing its first customer's breakfast. Patricia stepped outside. The hallway was bright and peaceful. Golden sunlight stretched across the clean floor. Somewhere downstairs, another apartment door closed. Someone else was beginning their workday too. She gently pulled her own door shut. Click. The familiar sound echoed softly through the hallway. Now, only one important task remained. She needed to lock the door. Looking down at the keys in her hand, she watched the tiny blue star swing gently from the silver keyring. Her fingers searched for the correct key. There you are. She slid the house key into the lock. Then, slowly, turned it. Click. The lock closed securely. She turned the key back, removed it, and held it safely once again. Like many careful people, Patricia had a little morning habit. She gently pulled the door handle. It didn't move. She smiled. Locked. Just to be absolutely certain, she checked it one more time. Still locked. Perfect. She gathered all the keys together and took a deep breath. The cool spring air felt wonderfully refreshing. Birds sang somewhere nearby. Cars rolled steadily along the busy streets. A city bus passed in the distance. She wondered if it was the same one she usually saw every morning. She glanced at her watch. A hopeful smile returned. She still had time. If everything went smoothly, she could still arrive at work right on time. If I keep moving, I'll make it. Without hesitation, she headed towards the staircase. Normally, she would have waited for the elevator, but not today. Today, every second counted. As she hurried downstairs, she noticed Mrs. Wilson watering flowers near the entrance. The elderly woman looked up and smiled warmly. Mrs. Wilson, "Good morning, Patricia." Patricia, "Good morning." Mrs. Wilson chuckled. "You're leaving early today." Patricia smiled without slowing down. "Actually, I'm running a little late." Both women laughed softly. "I hope you have a wonderful day at work." "Thank you. You too." Mrs. Wilson waved as Patricia continued toward the building's front door. She pushed it open and stepped onto the sidewalk. The neighborhood was fully awake. People hurried towards bus stops, carrying backpacks and briefcases. Cyclists glided smoothly through the bike lanes. Parents walked beside their children, chatting happily on their way to school. Above them, the morning sun shone brightly across a beautiful blue sky. The air was still cool and refreshing. Patricia buttoned her gray coat a little higher. Contented thought, "I'm glad I remembered this coat." A gentle breeze moved through the trees, causing the tiny blue star on her keyring to sway back and forth. She looked towards the parking area. Her car was waiting, only a short walk away. As she headed toward it, she realized how different she felt. Only minutes earlier, she had been anxious. Now, she felt calm, prepared, ready. She had finished her coffee. She had cleaned her mug. She had picked up her keys. She had grabbed her gray coat. She had stepped outside. She had locked her apartment. Everything had gone exactly as it should. Now, only one goal remained: to arrive at work on time. Warm, inspiring ending. Holding her keys confidently in one hand and walking with quick, determined steps, Patricia smiled to herself. Yes, the morning had begun with a rush, but somehow, deep inside, she still believed it was going to be a very good day. Patricia continued walking across the parking area with quick, confident steps. The cool morning breeze gently moved through her hair as she looked around. Several of her neighbors were also leaving for work. Some were getting into their cars, while others walked toward the nearest bus stop. Everyone seemed to have somewhere important to be. She tightened her grip around her keys and smiled politely at the people she passed. Neighbor, good morning. Patricia, good morning. But she continued walking, not because she was unfriendly, but because she knew today was different. She could talk another day. Right now, every minute mattered. As she walked toward her car, she thought about the busy day waiting at the office. Monday was usually the busiest day of the week. New projects often started on Mondays. Customers called with questions. Meetings filled the morning schedule. Patricia always enjoyed arriving early. She liked organizing her desk, checking her emails, and making a cup of tea before the official start of the workday. But today, that was no longer possible. Her goal had changed. She didn't need to arrive early. She simply needed to arrive on time. She looked at her watch again. The minutes continued moving forward. But something inside her had changed. She felt much more confident than she had earlier inside her apartment. She had completed everything she needed before leaving home. Her coffee was finished. The cup had been rinsed. The faucet had been turned off. The apartment had been left clean and organized. Her keys were safely in her hand. Her warm gray coat protected her from the cool morning air, and most importantly, the front door was securely locked. Patricia always believed that small habits created a better life. Cleaning after herself, placing important things in the same place every day, and carefully locking the door were simple routines, but together they helped her become more organized and responsible. She finally reached her car. She pressed the button on her key. Beep! The lights flashed once. The doors unlocked. There you are. She opened the driver's door and placed her bag on the passenger seat. Before starting the engine, she stopped for a moment. She took one slow, deep breath. No more rushing. Stay calm. She understood something important. Trying to hurry too much could create new problems. Driving safely was far more important than saving one single minute. She started the engine, adjusted her seat, checked every mirror carefully. Then she slowly pulled out of the parking space. The streets were becoming busier, exactly as she expected. Cars waited at traffic lights. Buses stopped to pick up passengers. People crossed the streets heading toward work, school, and shops. Patricia drove carefully. She followed the speed limit. She watched the road, and she paid attention to everything around her. While waiting at a red light, she smiled. Only 15 minutes ago, she had felt nervous and stressed. Now, she felt completely different. She realized that staying calm had helped her solve one problem after another. She hadn't panicked. She had simply focused on each task. First, she finished her coffee. Then, she rinsed the cup. After that, she found her keys. She grabbed her gray coat. She walked outside. And finally, she locked her apartment before leaving. Every small action had moved her one step closer to her destination. The traffic light turned green. Patricia continued driving toward the office. As she entered the downtown area, she noticed something surprising. Traffic was moving more smoothly than usual. A small smile appeared on her face. Maybe I'll make it after all. A few minutes later, she entered the company parking lot. She looked up the clock on the dashboard. She wasn't early, but she wasn't late either. She laughed quietly with relief. I made it. Patricia parked her car, gathered her belongings, and walked toward the office building with a confident smile. Several coworkers were entering through the front doors at the same time. Coworker: Morning, Patricia. Patricia: Good morning. Coworker: You got here just in time. Patricia: I certainly did. As she walked toward her desk, Patricia thought about everything that had happened that morning. The rush, the worry, the ticking clock, the coffee, the keys, the gray coat, the locked front door. All of it reminded her of an important lesson. Being organized every day makes busy mornings much easier. Even when life becomes stressful, staying calm, following good habits, and completing one task at a time can help solve problems without panic. Patricia turned on her computer, placed her bag beside her desk, and smiled as another workday began. She was exactly where she needed to be.